us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. For this is the day that you have made, and we will rejoice and we will be glad in it. We thank you for this twin island republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Father, we know by vision when you called this land our Trinity, the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, you declared the unity over this land. And we pray today that your unity will flow through all these twin islands today. We pray that your presence fill today's proceedings. Father, we ask that you fill us with your wisdom. We pray for the Prime Minister of this Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. We pray that you will give him wisdom that is from above, that is first pure, peaceable, gentle, willing to yield, full of truth, without partiality and without hypocrisy. I pray that you bless the executive, you bless the legislature, you bless, oh God, this land. I pray, Father, that you touch each and every speaker. We ask for your loving kindness and your tender mercies to rest and abide upon this place. Let your Holy Spirit take full control. Those who are on their way, Father, we pray that you bring them here safely. And even at the commencement and at the end of these proceedings, we ask, Father, that we will go home safely. In Jesus' name we pray. And everyone says, Amen.
National Movement and Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. the Honorable Rowley, who will join us shortly, Chairman of the People's National Movement, Senator the Honorable Franklin Khan, also our Minister of Energy and Energy Industries, His Worship, the Mayor of the City of San Fernando, Alderman Junior Regrello, Vice Chairman of the People's National Movement, and our distinguished Minister of Finance, the Honorable Paul Hilbert, other members of Cabinet and the government. And as we begin, I want to tell you tonight that there is hope. I want to tell you tonight that our God is in control. That our God that we know is faithful and just. I want to tell you tonight as we begin that as a party and as a people, we have faith in that God. We have faith in Almighty God. As we begin, I also want to tell you that despite our challenges, you must remember that no weapon formed against us shall prosper. I want to tell you as a united people that in our journey, we never get weary yet. I want to tell you tonight also that our victory is assured. Further, that the battle has already been won and we must accept it by faith. Tonight in the PNM, I advise my brothers and sisters that as a people and as a country, we are the head and not the tail. We are above and not beneath. We are the first and not the last. We are the People's National Movement. We are the people of Trinidad and Tobago. As we begin to bring words of welcome, welcome the Councillor for the Electoral District of Coquia-Taruba, the young and dynamic Teresa Lynch.
Don't worry about a thing. Singing, don't worry about a thing.
Thank you, Master of Ceremonies, Senator, the Honorable Senator Duki, His Worship the Mayor, Alderman Junior Regrello, the Prime Minister of this twin island of ours, Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley, the political leader of this party of ours, members of the head table, Senator the Honorable Franklin Khan, Chairman of the People's National Movement and Minister of Energy and Energy Affairs, the Honorable Carl Imbert, Minister of Finance, Honorable Member of Parliament for San Fernando West, the Honorable Faris Alwari, all ministers, and of course I must make mention to my Member of Parliament for San Fernando East, the Honorable Randall Mitchell, all ministers, members of the Senate. I must recognize in front of me Ms. Jonule Williams, Deputy Political Leader, my colleagues at the San Fernando City Corporation, members of the Pointe-à-Pierre constituency, chaired by Mr. Andrew Alves, all members of the media, good night. Welcome to the Pointe-à-Pierre constituency, which spans north of France Gardens and south by the Taruba Link Road. It incorporates San Fernando City Corporation that comprises of Councillor Sugrim for Marabella West, East, and my good self for Kokia Taruba. You all are currently in my electoral district. And of course, it also incorporates Couva Talparo Tabaquite Regional Corporation. My task is very short tonight and very simple. And I'm so glad and I'm great to see you all here tonight, safe and sound, honorable ministers, executive, senators, as I welcome you here in the Marabella Community Center. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight at this gathering, you will be presented with the government's plans for the Petrochin company located right here in Pointe-à-Pierre. I implore you to be a good listener, to be positive, and remember, we are all in this together. So as we chart our roadmaps and steer the ship, this committed team of hard-working members of Parliament would lay out our part in dealing with these challenges we are currently facing in Petrochin. And there is one line that I love to say, and I will say it again and again. A minute of patience can save you a lifetime of regret. And I know you have been patient with us, ladies and gentlemen. And I ask you to continue to be patient with us, ladies and gentlemen. As we chart this way forward, again, I want to welcome you and thank you for your presence at the Pointe-à-Pierre constituency. And again, I want to remind you that we are stronger together, positive and progressive, forward ever, backward, a future with confidence. Welcome, and great is the PNM.
Show your love one more time for your hard-working councillor as we recognize the contribution of local government. With confidence, I want to advise us that it's important to keep focus. And let me remind you of the inspiring words of the founding father of the movement, Dr. Eric Williams, and I quote, "Whatever the challenge that faces you from whatever quarter, place always first that national interest and that national cause. The strength of our nation depends on the strength of its citizens." The words of our founding father, Dr. Eric Williams. Tonight, the government of Trinidad and Tobago, we are placing Trinidad and Tobago first. And one of the leaders in that charge is our next speaker. He is an outstanding performer, a stalwart in the People's National Movement. he has served for decades in the House of Representatives, an extremely fierce debater in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago, a highly motivated and committed servant of the people. Welcome to address us here tonight in Marabella, the Member of Parliament for Digomartin Northeast, the Vice Chairman of the People's National Movement, and the Minister of Finance, the Honorable Colm Imbert.
Better days are coming. Better days are coming. Better days are coming.
Thank you, Daniel. Dr. the Honorable Keith Rowley, political leader of the People's National Movement and Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, who is on his way. Chairman of the People's National Movement, my cabinet colleague, Mr. Franklin Can, other members of the head table, other cabinet ministers, your worship, the Mayor of Port of Spain, check in on you. Your worship, Mr. Junior Regrello, the Mayor of San Fernando. Other local government representatives, members of council of the San Fernando City Council, distinguished guests, members of the leadership of the People's National Movement, deputy political leaders, party members, supporters, the media. I have been asked tonight to speak at this meeting to give you the perspective from the ministry. Is this the Prime Minister coming? Well, I will cease.
Ladies and gentlemen, I ask you to welcome tonight in Marabella the political leader of the People's National Movement and the Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Welcome your leader, a man of integrity. Welcome Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley as he joins us on stage. Put your hands together as our political leader and Prime Minister joins us at this meeting in Marabella.
So as the box be down, so I get up. They have to wonder how others get up. And every crack I see, I don't see through. I'm ready help.
All right, let's start all over again. Dr. the Honorable Keith Rowley, political leader of the People's National Movement and Prime Minister, my cabinet colleagues, the Mayor of San Fernando, members of the leadership of the People's National Movement, members of Parliament, local government representatives, members of the head table, members of the party, members of the Pointe-a-Pierre constituency, other PNM supporters, chairmen of local government corporations, well-wishers, the media, San Fernando East, and San Fernando West. It's all right, Faris, I saw you when you came in. My job here tonight, ladies and gentlemen, is to give you the perspective from the Ministry of Finance with respect to the information that we have at the Ministry of Finance with regard to Petrotrin's financial situation, its profitability or lack thereof, its performance in terms of finances over the last several years. And the reason why I have come here to do that is that there's quite a bit of inaccurate information in the public domain with respect to Petrotrin. But before I get into the numbers, let me just say that this difficult issue will be resolved by our dedicated team working side by side with all concerned. You see, we in the Ministry of Finance, we know that we have to step in and we have to provide the financial support to get us through this situation, and we will. But let me just tell you what the reality is with respect to Petrotrin. I have with me the financial statements that are available on Petrotrin's website. So these are not secret documents. If you go on Petrotrin's website, you will see its consolidated financial statements for many past years, as recently as 2017. And I have brought these financial statements with me. And I've done an extraction, a summary of the performance of Petrotrin as a whole company, because we have to understand Petrotrin is what is called an integrated company. So it has two arms. It has a refining and marketing arm, and it has an exploration and production arm. So what I have brought with me are the financial statements for Petrotrin as a whole, combined statements for exploration and production and refining and marketing. And let me tell you, going back to the year 2009, what these financial statements tell you. They tell you that as far back as 2009, Petrotrin lost $885 million. It then went through a small period of profitability where, for example, in 2014, it made a profit of $150 million. In 2013, it made a profit of $21 million. But as we go now to 2015, the financial statements tell us that Petrotrin lost $1.04 billion in 2015, and the real loss took place in 2016, where Petrotrin lost $5 billion. Let me repeat that. In the year 2016, Petrotrin lost $5 billion. In the year 2017, Petrotrin posted a loss of $2.2 billion. But that $5 billion loss in 2016 is a signal to something that has been happening in that company all the time. Today, I asked the persons in charge of accounting at Petrotrin to give me the figures for the refinery, because what has been happening all these years, because they have been mixing the financial performance of the exploration and production side, the Trinmar side, production of oil, the land crude, because they have been mixing the financial performance of that piece of Petrotrin with the refinery, it has been masking the real situation at Petrotrin. So I asked the accounting department to give me the figures for the refinery alone. And let me just give you some idea of what has been happening in that refinery. And I will go back to the year 2012. In 2012, the financial statements tell us that the refinery lost $722 million. In 2013, the refinery lost $2.3 billion. In 2014, the refinery lost $2.6 billion. In 2015, the refinery lost $2.7 billion. And as you come to PNM, even though we have tried our best to reduce expenditure and to be as efficient as possible in the refinery lost $1.3 billion in 2016 and $1.7 billion in 2017. But let's go back now to the statements of the company as a whole, when you mix oil production finances with refinery finances. And let's go back to that year, 2016, where the company lost $5 billion. And you ask yourself, how is this possible? I'll tell you how. You see all these losses I have just spelled out for you? $722 million in 2012, $2.3 billion in 2013, $2.6 billion in 2014, $2.7 billion in 2015, $1.3 billion in 2016, and so on. Guess what was happening? Those huge losses in the refinery were being masked by the overall company. And the profitability of exploration and production was being lost in the loss-making side of the refinery. What the former administration was doing, they were hiding these losses. They did some very creative accounting, and they took these losses, these billions of losses that I have called out for you. If you do simple calculations, you will cross $10 billion in losses over the 2012 to 2017 period. More than $10 billion in losses. You know what they were doing? They were not recording these losses in the books as a loss. They were recording it, believe it or not, as an advanced tax credit. So what they were doing, they were hiding the fact that the refinery was losing billions of dollars. They were parking the losses in a corner. And what they said is that when the refinery begins to make profit, they will take those accumulated losses and they will use them to write off against the profit in future years. But you can't do that in accounting. You could only do that for 1 year, 2 years, maybe 3 years if you're lucky. So under the UNC, the company's auditors was not recording, they were not recording these huge losses. As soon as P&M come in, the auditors came to us and told us we're going to have to post these losses. As accountants, we can no longer give an unqualified, clean bill of health to Petrotrin's accounts. As a government, as the Ministry of Finance, we were shocked. Where did all these losses come from? How come they are not appearing in Petrotrin's published accounts? But the accountants told us we have to post it, otherwise we cannot audit this company. And you know what happened? All the losses were put into financial year 2016, which is why the company suddenly posted a loss in 2016 of $5 billion. That was all the losses that the former administration had been hiding since 2012, 2013, 2014, and 2015. So the true picture of the refinery is that between 2012 and 2017, the refinery lost over $10 billion. In fact, if I do a quick calculation here, I don't have the arithmetical ability of the party chairman, but I could do some maths. If I do a little addition here, I get $11 billion in losses in the refinery over the 2012 to 2017 period. Now, all of the people in the company knew this, you know. All the managers knew this. They all knew that the refinery was losing more than $2 billion a year. They knew that any profits made in the exploration and production side of the company were being sucked in and lost in the refinery. Because what you need to understand is that it is the oil production side of Petrotrin that has been meeting the expenses of the workers, their salaries, their pension arrangements, their health plan, and all of the benefits. It is the exploration and production side, the exploration side, that has been contributing to the welfare of the workers of Petrotrin all of these years. The refinery has been contributing nothing except losses in the order of $2.7 billion. Now, we in the government looked at this for a very long time. A very long time. Because, of course, when you look at this kind of thing, and when you speak to the auditors, because we in finance, we interrogated the auditors. We brought in experts. We didn't advise ourselves. We brought in external auditors to interrogate the company's accountants and the company's auditors to find out what is really going on here. And they said they have to declare the losses that were being not declared before, because they have done their analysis over the last several years, and the refinery will never make a profit. Never. That's what they told us. The refinery will never make a profit. And you can only carry forward losses as tax credits if in the future there is the possibility that the entity will make a profit and you write off the losses against that. So that is what we were faced with. Chartered accountants telling us that the refinery will never make a profit, and it's time to post this $11 billion in losses. But if you look at the published accounts of Petrotrin, if you go on the website, you will see that the accounts have been restated and restated in the year of 2016, and that's where the $5 billion loss comes in. But if you take a good look at the accounts, you will see while the refinery was losing $2.2 billion in 2013, the company was declaring a profit of $21 million. I want you all to understand what's going on there. The refinery lost $2.3 billion in 2013, but the company declared a profit of $1 million. You know what that meant? It meant that the oil production side made a profit of $2.3 billion. So the profit of the oil production side was able to cater for the loss on the refinery side. Let's look at 2014, where the loss in the refinery was $2.6 billion. Again, the company declared a profit of $150 million. So you know what that means? The oil production side of Petrotrin made a profit of $2.6 billion in the year 2014, and all of it got sucked into the loss-making refinery and was lost. So every year you look at it, you get the same picture. If you look at 2015, the refinery lost $2.7 billion, but the company only posted a loss of $1 billion. That means the oil production side made a profit of $1.7 billion, which was then lost in the refinery. So the reason why I'm emphasizing these facts is because you need to understand what is going on. The 40,000 barrels of oil that Petrotrin produces is where Petrotrin gets its revenue from. That's where it gets its profit from. That's where it gets its income from. It is that money is substantial. If you take oil at $60 a barrel, US, and you multiply it by 40,000 barrels a day, and you convert to TT dollars, and you do it for the whole year, the actual income from that 40,000 barrels is 6 billion Trinidad and Tobago dollars. 6 billion Trinidad and Tobago dollars. And Petrotrin's overall expense is somewhere between $4 and $5 billion. So even if Petrotrin's expenses continued as is, the company will immediately make a profit of it in excess of $1 billion just by selling the oil that it produces. So understand what is going on. It is a fallacy that the refinery has been contributing towards the income of Petrotrin and paying the workers' salaries and paying their health plan and paying their pension plan. That is a fallacy. The refinery has been sucking money out of Petrotrin for years. So I thought it was necessary to tell people this, and I now want to move on and explain why the persons involved, retirees, people on the health plan and so on, why you should have comfort, and why the lenders who have lent money to Petrotrin and these loans become due next year, why they should have comfort. Because from the time the refinery is closed, Petrotrin immediately becomes a profitable company. And all of the profit it makes will be used to continue to secure the workers' pensions, to secure their health benefits, to pay their salaries, to take care of the workers. So Petrotrin will be in a far better place once the loss-making refinery is no longer there. So I thought I should come here and clear that up, because there's a lot of talk outside there that when the refinery closes down, where will Petrotrin get money to pay workers' salaries? Where will Petrotrin get money to pay pensions? The fact is that all of those things were being paid for by the oil production side of Petrotrin. None of it was being paid by the refinery side. Let me also give you some information that we at the Ministry of Finance have. It's important that you hear this, because I'm speaking from, not from my perspective, but from what the public servants tell me. And let me tell you what they tell me. Every month or two, we get a spreadsheet from Petrotrin. And on that spreadsheet, it tells us how much money they owe to various state entities in Trinidad and Tobago. And I have the aged payables analysis of Petrotrin as at the 30th of June 2018 in my hand. And I can tell you today that Petrotrin owes the Board of Inland Revenue up to June, we know it's September, up to June, $2.6 billion in taxes. $2.6 billion. And Petrotrin also owes the Ministry of Energy for royalties $1.4 billion. So when you add the royalties that Petrotrin is not paying, and you add the taxes that they are not paying, Petrotrin owes the state $4 billion. $4 billion. And one of the ways persons have tried to avoid dealing with that fact that Petrotrin should have paid the Treasury $4 billion and has not, is that they say, oh, they are owed money for the fuel subsidy. Well, the fuel subsidy is less than $1 billion. I just want to put that on the table here tonight. The fuel subsidy is less than $1 billion. So if you deduct that from the money owed by Petrotrin, Petrotrin still owes the Treasury $3 billion. And let me explain what the problem is. As Minister of Finance, I've been sitting down with my team at the ministry over the last month, looking at the performance of the economy for this fiscal year, which comes to an end at the end of this September, looking at revenue collection, looking at what we get from customs duty, value-added tax, individual personal income tax, corporation tax, supplementary petroleum tax, petroleum profits tax, royalties. And up to today, I had a meeting at 3 o'clock in the ministry, and we have observed a big hole in revenue collection in terms of oil companies. And when we do the analysis for this fiscal year, we are missing $900 million from Petrotrin. And that's part of the budget, because royalties is a law. Supplementary petroleum tax is a law. Every barrel of oil that is produced, there's a royalty of 12.5% of the value. Every time the price of oil goes over $50, which it has for a very long time now, there's a supplementary petroleum tax that kicks in at various rates, 18%, 20%, and so on. By law, every oil company in Trinidad and Tobago is supposed to make these payments, including Petrotrin. BP makes the payments, Shell makes the payments, EOG makes the payments, Perenco makes the payments, BHP makes the payments. We have not received a cent from Petrotrin for this fiscal year, causing a shortfall in revenue collection for fiscal 2018 of $900 million. Now that $900 million is for school feeding. It's for school transportation. It's for medicine in the hospitals. It's for senior citizens' pension. That's what that $900 million was budgeted for. It's allocated throughout the ministries. But we didn't get it. So we've had to adjust and scrimp and scrape and so on and see how we can make do without that $900 million. And this has been going on for a long time. I told you the company owes the Treasury $4 billion. So you could see how long this has been going on for and the amount of pressure it is putting on us at the Ministry of Finance to provide essential services to you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago. So I thought I would come here tonight Oh yes, the Prime Minister just reminded me of something. Not only is Petrotrin not paying its royalties and its taxes, and we out almost $1 billion for the year because of that, but we have to guarantee, give a government guarantee to Petrotrin when it goes out to borrow. Because the financial market, the banks are no longer willing to finance Petrotrin in its current position to buy oil. Remember, in its current configuration, Petrotrin buys 100,000 barrels of oil every single day. And at current oil prices, just imagine how much that is, 100,000 barrels by $60. Do the maths. $6 million a day is what Petrotrin is required to purchase to run the refinery. And we in the Treasury, we in the government, you the people, we have had to guarantee loans for Petrotrin to get that money to put it through the refinery and then lose $3 to $4 US on every single barrel that goes through the refinery. $3 to $4 US is lost on every single barrel. Oil in, gasoline out, X dollars in, X minus dollars out. That is what is happening in Trinidad and Tobago. So I thought I would bring these facts to you because there's too much misinformation outside there. And I want to tell you, no matter how hard it is, we in the Ministry of Finance will find whatever funding is required, whatever financing is required to work with the workers of Petrotrin to make this transition as easy as possible. We will do whatever we can. If we have to borrow money, if we have to go in some cupboard and find money, we will. I want to give you that assurance tonight. We are with you. We are with you. And whatever it takes, we will do it. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
One thing that he didn't tell me, there is sunrise after each cloud. I say, even though the road is long, no matter what come, I know I'm gonna make it. Hey, oh Lord, I'm gonna make it.
And I rewind that tape for a good reason. Because throw our minds back to September 7, 2015, and check where this country was. We were on the verge of collapse. economic collapse, largely because there were major challenges in the energy sector. There were 5 key issues. One, there was the gas curtailment issue, where demand was greater than supply. Secondly, there were claims against the NGC of over 4.6 billion TT dollars for gas not supplied to the downstreamers. Thirdly, there was no upstream gas sales agreement with the major upstream producers, in particular EOG and BP. Fourthly, and probably more importantly, or most importantly, there had been, from 2014 onwards, a significant decline in energy sector revenue. Largely, ladies and gentlemen, because of lucrative concessions that were given by the former administration to the upstream energy companies. And fifthly, of course, which is the theme of tonight's meeting, the challenge at Petrotrade. What did our Prime Minister do? He took a leadership role in this exercise. The first thing that this administration did was the re-establishment of the Standing Committee of Energy, a cabinet committee that was formed under the Manning administration. I was a member of that committee when I was Minister of Works and Transport. That committee met once a month. So important was it to the national economy. Under the Kamala Prasad-Bissesa government, that committee met once per year. It met 5 times in 5 years. And they abdicated their responsibilities to the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. There's the famous Houston meeting, where Dr. Rowley and Minister Young went to Houston, met with the leaders of BP and EOG, and brokered and signed a gas sales agreement so that we could have been guaranteed the long-term supply of gas from these companies. Together with that, both BP and Shell committed to an investment of over $10 billion over the next 5 years. With regards to the decline in revenue, what did he do? He summoned something called the Spotlight on Energy, where we called this nation, was open to this nation as where the leakage in revenue was taking place, largely from offshore value coming out of LNG. We invited the Oilfield Workers Trade Union to that meeting, expecting support because your government is trying to get revenue for you. They didn't come. And they say they are patriots. Coming out of that meeting, the Prime Minister led a team to London, including myself and Minister Young. We met with the leaders and the president of both BP and Shell, and we said, we have, that was the Prime Minister's exact words, we have shareholders too. And if you want a fair return for your shareholders, I want for mine. Rightfully so, ladies and gentlemen, the oil companies agreed, and we have started negotiations along those lines. And finally, after 2 decades of lying on the back burner, an agreement that was signed by President Chavez and Prime Minister Manning, Dr. Rowley finally brokered a deal with Venezuela for the supply of gas. Tonight, as a line minister with responsibility for energy, I want to publicly thank and congratulate our Prime Minister for his incisive leadership in the energy sector. But tonight, we have come here to talk largely about Petrotrade. But before I delve into Petrotrade, let me say one thing. A personal story. In 1980, I graduated as a geologist out of the University of West Indies, Mona, Jamaica. And I immediately went to work in what was then Trinidad, in the Exploration and Production Department based in Clark Road in Pinal. From there, I moved to Santa Flora, where I spent most of my time. sometime in Trinidad, Point Fortin, and finally to Pointe-à-Pied in my latter days. Ladies and gentlemen, I have spent 20 years of my professional career in this company. Who I am today and what skills I bring to this ministry was largely developed in Petrotrin. And it hurts my heart. And when I say it hurts my heart, I know my heart is so good. So I have to be careful. But it hurts my heart to see where this company has reached. Something went fundamentally wrong. And today, this administration is going to put it right. I'll make one other point. In 1993, with the merger of Trintoc, which was acquired from Shell and from Texaco, and from Trintopec, which acquired the Tissot assets, Petrotrin was formed. At that point in time, ladies and gentlemen, and I shouldn't say this, but I'll still say it was said that we control the commanding heights of the economy. Remember that phrase? The commanding heights of the economy. It felt good. As a young professional in the industry, it felt good to me. But regretfully, ladies and gentlemen, the commanders in the commanding heights did not do a good job. That's the reality. Today, it has fallen on this administration to bring some sanity, to bring some good sense, and to bring some good business practice to, as we said, reinventing Petrotrin. I'll spend the next few minutes to explain two concepts to you, so you could put everything in context. First and foremost, to the national economy. We are a gas-based industry. But to the national economy, even though our oil production is low, oil is still better business than gas. And oil is still better business than gas for three reasons. With gas, there's something called the value chain. And if you're not careful where the value is, right now we're not benefiting from the entire value chain because the value is going offshore. In oil, you don't have that problem. We have a very robust system of taxation for oil. The Minister of Finance just said, first and foremost, coming from the top is royalties, 12.5%. Then there's SPT, which is a windfall profit tax. So anytime oil price goes above $50, the tax kicks in. And then there's petroleum profit tax. The second aspect about oil that is good is that you can't cheat us on oil price. Because every single crude traded in this world is referenced against a reference crude. So if Trinidad land crude is WTI minus $6, nobody can fool it. That is the approximate price you can get. With gas, it is different. Gas depends on which markets you go to, etc., etc. And probably more importantly to the economy, in the oil business, there's more jobs and more work for the service sector because oil wells require servicing more regularly than gas wells. Mr. Innes, you're shaking your head. That's one aspect. The second thing I want to explain is to pick up on Minister Imwood's dialogue. It's the difference between exploration and production and refining and marketing. The business model for exploration and production is simple. You drill for, you produce, and you sell crude oil. There's an operating cost to produce oil. So if, as a company, it is costing you $35 to produce a barrel of oil, and oil is selling at $50, $15 is profit. It is as simple as that. But what happens now if oil goes to $80? Your profit jumps from $15 to $30. That is called a windfall profit. Because you didn't do anything to earn that. You are at the mercy of the oil price. So that is why we have a tax called supplemental petroleum tax. Because the government has a right to take some of that profit from the oil companies because you didn't work for it. So in the exploration and production business, once your operating cost is at a certain range and you can make a profit, there's always a chance of a windfall profit. The point I'm making, ladies and gentlemen, exploration and production is good business. That is why we are staying. We are planted for leases. Refining is what you call a margins business. Where do I refine in the United States? Has a gross margin of about $8 per barrel. Its operation cost is about $4 per barrel. So at every barrel of crude that is refined in a refinery like that, you make $4. There are refineries in the United States called that are refining 1 million barrels a day. So here you have a company that is making $4 million per day. The problem with our refinery is that our net margin, and the Minister of Finance indicated is between minus $2.50 and minus $3.50 or a minus. So for every barrel of crude you refine, irrespective of the price, you lose it between $3.50 and $4.50. Furthermore, you're importing 100,000 barrels per day to lose that. If you was losing it on your own oil alone, that was fine. That was not fine, but at least it's still semi-palatable. So you importing oil, using up scarce foreign exchange in this country, using enough Minister of Finance has problems to protect. To lose only 100,000 barrels you are refining, an average of $2.50. We formed a company which was in a terminal state. For the financial year 2015, Mr. Ingles indicated it already, they recorded losses of $1 billion, $5 billion in 2016, and a loss of $2.2 billion in 2017. On assumption of office, we requested a presentation from management of the state for the state of affairs of the company. What we learned was that the company was in a precarious financial state. Cash from operations was negative, and approval was being sought by the government for guarantee of a US $500 million loan facilities to fund its capital program and debt. Access to England. The debt level was 13.3 billion TT dollars, comprising of short-term debt of TT 5.2 billion and long-term debt of 8.1 billion, which included a famous US 850 million bullet bond payment, which is due in August next year. You pass August already, you know. Management advised that given the present and projected level of cash generation, they also admitted that the current performance did not provide confidence of the sustainability, and there were key imperatives that must be pursued aggressively if the company's position was to improve. These imperatives included improvement in oil production, higher refinery throughput, higher gross margins, reduction in manpower costs, renegotiation of contracts, and cash injection by the government. Government, recognizing the need for urgent action, appointed a board of directors with a mandate to review the state of affairs of the company. However, ladies and gentlemen, the situation did not improve. The projection for a turnaround was illusionary, and without foundation. Indeed, the performance of the company deteriorated significantly. The net result moved from a loss of $1 billion in 2015 to a loss of $4.3 billion in 2016. In 2017, government, concerned about the deteriorating financial position of Petrotrin, appointed a 7-member team led by the then Permanent Secretary, Mr. Selwyn Lashley of Petrotrin, and to take steps necessary to make the company sustainable and profitable. That board of directors engaged international consultants with global experience in benchmarking oil companies. McKinsey, Solomon Brothers, these are world-class Fortune 500 companies. We listened, we consulted, and as Minister Embo told you, of refining operations. For obvious reasons. You are losing and you are hemorrhaging significant money that the Minister of Finance needs, that the Minister of Health needs, that the Minister of Education needs, that the Minister of Labor needs. Money to develop the social infrastructure and the physical infrastructure of Trinidad and Tobago. It cannot be consumed by 2,000 people on behalf of the state when the population of this country is 1.3 million. We say, ladies and gentlemen, that we had no choice in this matter. But let me, before I leave the finances of Petrotrin, let me draw your attention to two issues. They have done many wrong things and many ill-advised things, but I want to draw another one to you. Mr. Imbud spoke about their finances, how they hide losses and see it was for tax write-off purposes, tax credit. If we want to close down the refinery tomorrow, we can't do it. You know why? Because the company went and pre-sold its products for approximately 2 to 3 months to fund its immediate cash reserves. So whatever, you're in August, but you're selling October products. You make it yet, you know. You buy the crude yet to make it, you know, but you don't sell it and take the money. That is irresponsible management. And then, I just want to drill a little deeper into the salaries and wages bill, because it's a dicey point. Salaries and wages made up 52.8% of operating costs. Operating costs is $4.1 billion a year. Salaries is $2.19 billion. But hear this. There are 3,437 permanent employees. Their wage bill is $1.87 billion per annum. An average wage bill per employee, average, of $45,000 per month. Ministers don't take home $45,000 a month, by the way. There are 1,229 non-permanent employees with an annual wage bill of $320 million. An average salary for casual and temporary, they are called. I give them a nice phrase, non-permanent. They're called in the industry casual and temporary. The average wage bill is $21,000. And here this one, the overtime bill has been constantly, over the last couple of years, averaging $22.7 million per month. And I want to just go off those statistics with two real examples for you. Earlier this year, when it became known to me that the overtime was out of whack, I asked 1 month earlier this year to send me for that month the 50 top overtime owners in the company. 50, just 50. Ladies and gentlemen, I got the list. I cannot call names. But there was a carpenter on that list who earned $70,000 a month in overtime. In the refinery, so I don't know if they have wood in the refinery is iron, but a carpenter in the refinery had an overtime payment of $70,000 for that. I'll give you another piece of statistics and I will stop that because I'm not bashing the workers, you know. I'm giving you some reality checks. There's an agreement between the union and the company which states that if you awarding a contract for labor under the terms of the union agreement signed by management, you know, because it's an agreement, union and management, that states when you take on a contractor, you have to pay him OWTU Petrotrin rates. What that means, ladies and gentlemen, that if there's a contractor taken on to mow the lawn in Pointe-à-Pied camp, that contractor has to pay his employees through the company OWTU rates for laborers. You know what is OWTU rates for laborers? $77 an hour. $616 per day for a laborer. CPAP workers getting $80 a day. You know? So here you have a system, because the person who is cutting the lawn at Pointe-à-Pied is not a Petrotrin employee. He's a contractor employee who is forced to pay that because of these agreements. And ladies and gentlemen, let me just say one thing again. When unions and management sign these type of agreements, they could go home, laugh, and sleep. But at the end of the day, somebody has to foot that bill. And there will come a time when you have ridiculous agreements like this, that the bill would not be able to be met. And that is when all hell will break loose. And you look E&P company. Ladies and gentlemen, Petrotrin sits on 165 million. The world, with these high oil prices, doesn't have a single drilling rig in operation. You drill when oil prices are high because you get oil and you make money. There's very limited heavy workovers going on. For those of you who know the industry, they'll know what I mean. A new E&P company will reactivate and re-energize all of South Trinidad. Because what the energy sector needs is not Petrotrin, you know. They need a vibrant sector with activity. A new Petrotrin will give them that. We'll be developing Trinma with new technology, with new seismic, with new drilling programs, with new production facilities, with upgraded infrastructure. On land, we will be looking for oil. But to be successful in the exploration production business, you need two things. You need technology in today's world, and you need a cadre of first-class employees. And an exploration and production company's strength, and I am biased here when I say this one, is in the strength of its subsurface team. The subsurface team is the people who find the oil for you. The people who tell you where to drill, what wells to work over, what wells to work on. Geologists, myself and the boss. Geophysicists, reservoir engineers, petroleum engineers, drilling engineers, production engineers. And when you have, and we have bright young people in this country. We have been running them through the mills of UTT and UWI for decades. A lot of them cannot find jobs today because the system is not allowing it. This new system will allow them to come into the industry, learn from their mentors, and produce oil for Trinidad and Tobago. There will be major activities in the southwestern peninsula and San Fernando, in Marabella, because Marabella has a lot of fabricating industries and service sector, instrumentation, you name it, we have it. What will happen to the refinery? Sorry. In the first instance, it will be converted to a terminaling and bunkering facility. There's tremendous storage capacity. We used to refine 150,000 barrels of oil. You have to import crude, you have to store finished product. There's a port. So what we will be transforming ourselves into a terminal facility where we will be importing finished products. More than we will use on the local market, and re-exporting it to the Caribbean islands. So the only difference between this model and the refinery model is that the refinery wouldn't be producing the fuel. We will be importing the fuel. Because we're importing in bulk, we will get it cheaper and redistributing it to the Caribbean. So we may well make the same amount of money. And now, let me deal with the thorny topic. What will happen to the refinery? I'm quoting from the Prime Minister's address on Sunday. He said the refining asset of Petrotrin can now be put in a separate company for opportunity attention. What is so wrong with that? We wouldn't close down the refinery and leave it to rot. The refinery, as bad as it is, as inefficient as it was, has some value. The value it has to Trinidad is not economic value to us, but it could be economic value to another party, to a third party, somebody with a crude oil supply source that doesn't have the strain to get foreign exchange like us to bring in crude. Somebody will come in with a new business model, with new technology. So, what the Prime Minister there said, and rightfully said, is the refining asset of Petrotrin can now be put in a separate company for opportunity attention. He chose his words correctly. And we are willing to discuss with any third party how they want to see the refinery operate. And all those conspiracy theorists, they don't say now, we have a buyer lineup already. I'm going to sell it to the 1%. And all type of foolishness and old talk. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not the time for that. Okay? This is serious times. There are challenges. And on this point, I want to say that no matter what spin I just put on this thing here, I sort of criticize and ridicule Petrotrin's operation. I show the ridiculousness of their cost structure. I articulated a clear and unambiguous reason why we had to go the way we had to go. But at the end of the day, there are still families. There are still children, there are still wives, there are still husbands who will be somewhat negatively affected by this. And I want to tell all those people that the PNM cares and this administration cares about them. And we will do everything in our power to make sure that they have a soft landing. We have already indicated through the Prime Minister's speech on Sunday that we'll have an early retirement program for people over 50, that they will get an enhanced payment and get their full pension. The medical things that have been negotiated already, we will honor it. And for those less than 50, they would have an enhanced package, an attractive package that they can cushion the fall, and then they move on. A lot of them are young, bright professionals and skilled and semi-skilled workers. Opportunities will become available. Do not get despondent. Even the new exploration production company can absorb a lot of people. So while it will only absorb 900 of Petrotrin workers, the spin-off industry there is tremendous. So do not lose hope. We are here to bring some sanity to what has been happening in an obscene way for many, many years. And I think the plan we have put together is a well-thought-out plan. And I want to compliment our Prime Minister for his leadership in the Petrotrin. All right. So let me now deal with the politics. Because the PNM is a political party, you know, for those of you who forgot. And let me deal with one lady first. It's not the lady you think I'm going to deal with. I deal with her second. I seen an article here in the papers today. Caroline challenges Khan to a public debate on Petrotrin. She was Minister of Energy under UNC, you know, they did nothing, you know. According to Basde Pandey, she's now head of the corps. Carolyn challenges Khan to public debate on petrotrin. I want to tell Mrs. Sipasad Bechan here tonight that if she wants to debate me, the COP has to win at least one seat and come to the parliament. And I know that they can't do. So she will never get a chance to debate. And then now I will deal with the other one. She had a big press conference this evening. Mrs. Kamala Prasad Bisesa, opposition leader and leader of the UNC. I want to tell her tonight that energy is a specialized, highly technical, highly sophisticated business. Even those of us who came from the industry, who knows it, or who claim we know it, as I do, on key issues, we still have to seek expert advice. You cannot advise yourself on these matters. As everybody will know, a lawyer, you cannot advise yourself. You have to seek counsel. And on strategic matters of this in the energy sector, we have sought counsel. She has seek no counsel, and she just go in and blah blah her mouth of all kind of plans, uninformed. Her first plan was say, why shut down the refinery? Let's refine Guyanese crude. Ladies and gentlemen, what I have shown here tonight is that the refinery is hopelessly uneconomic as presently configured and with its present cost structure. Whether we refine Nigerian crude, Angolan crude, Venezuelan crude, Russian crude, or Guyanese crude, you will still lose money. There's nothing special about Guyanese crude. And Guyana in its own sense, so you think Guyana will give us the crude? Guyana will be now starting to earn revenue. Guyana has a production sharing contract with Exxon. They are in the cost recovery stage. Most of that production will be Exxon's production. Exxon has its own refinery network internationally. So Guyana's portion of the crude, obviously, as a responsible government to the Guyanese people, they will have to seek fair market value for their crude. So that is a non-starter from the beginning. Then she came up with the idea that Jamaica has a refinery and Jamaica doesn't produce crude. How come Jamaica could have a refinery? Ladies and gentlemen, let me give you some statistics on Jamaica's refinery. Jamaica has a very small refinery that processes 36,000 barrels per day. Our refinery is 150,000 barrels per day. The ownership structure of the Jamaican refinery is Petrojam, 51%, that's the petroleum company of Jamaica, that's a state company like Petrotrin, and PDVSA, 49%. The reason that refinery is surviving is because they get low-cost concessionary crude from PDVSA. Our refinery, Dr. Rowley signed a gas deal with Venezuela. He didn't sign no low-cost crude from PDVSA. So in any event, the whole model in Petrojam is different to ours. Added to which, it is what is called a hydro-skimming refinery, which means there's no cat cracking for those of you who are in the refinery business. So that only 30 to 40% of their throughput comes out as distillates, which is gasoline, diesel, and aviation fuel. And a humongous 60 to 70% comes out as heavies of fuel oil and other low-value products. So, gosh, Kamala, if any model you want to use, don't use Jamaica, please. Okay? So you are devoid of ideas, speak to your expert, and come with something better. We sought expert advice. We have expertise advising this government. We have some level of expertise in the cabinet itself. And ladies and gentlemen, I think we have taken the right decision on behalf of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. So tonight, in closing, I call on the national community, as I did last week Sunday, to treat this matter with maturity, with pragmatism, and with a significant level of patriotism. We all in this ship together. Trinidad is a small island. Trinidad and Tobago are small islands. Barely over 1.3 million people. We have our own vested interests at times, but as a nation we have to pull together. This has been a significant national cancer on the economy, and we could have not survived as an economy if we didn't get the cancer out. The cancer has some fallout to it, and we will manage it with kid gloves and with a loving heart. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you very much, and great is the PNL.
You just heard the facts. You just heard the truth. And tonight you notice I didn't tell Kamala nothing, and I said nothing about the UNC. I spoke to you. And I want to tell you one more thing tonight before I introduce our featured speaker. To remind you, because I'm sure that you know that the good works that God has started in us, He is faithful and just to complete it. If you believe that, put your hands together tonight. My dear friends, it is time for the feature address of the evening. Our feature speaker focuses on doing the right things, regardless of its consequences. He is obedient to his oath of office, as he knows that it is better to obey than to sacrifice. And that is why he always acts without fear or favor, malice or ill will. His stellar academic record is characterized by being awarded the prestigious Sylvan Bowl Scholarship, and is further highlighted by his doctoral degree, specializing in the science of geochemistry, having previously completed his master's degree and BSc degree with first-class honors. This outstanding academic accomplishment positioned him for leadership as he held the positions of head of the Seismic Research Unit of the University of the West Indies and general manager of National Quarries Limited. His leadership success and his desire to serve ushered him into the political arena, and in this regard, he first entered Parliament as an opposition senator in 1987 and served until 1990. In 1991, he entered the lower house, having been elected as a member of Parliament for Diego Martin West, and altogether continues to serve at the parliamentary level for more than 3 decades. During this period, at the executive level, he held the portfolios of Minister of Land and Marine Resources, Minister of Planning and Development, Minister of Housing, and Minister of Trade and Industry. He was elected as the 4th political leader of the PNM in 2010 and has led the re-engineering of the movement with vision, passion, and integrity. He is a leader of leaders, and help me welcome tonight in Marabella to bring the feature address, the Member of Parliament for Diego Martin West, the political leader of the People's National Movement, and the Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley.
I feel like hope.
Thank you very much, Chairman Daniel Duki, who is the Assistant Secretary of our party and does human service for us in more ways than one. Permit me tonight to recognize in this audience His Worship the Mayor of San Fernando, Alderman Junior Regrello, Deputy Political Leader, Party and Elections, Mrs. Joan Yule Williams, A number of my cabinet colleagues, including the Minister of Health, Member of Parliament for St. Joseph, Mr. Terence Dayal Singh, and quiet but deep thinking, very competent Minister of Labour, Mrs. Jennifer Baptiste Primus, my other parliamentary colleagues who might be here who are not visible to me from this podium, members of the executives from San Fernando East, San Fernando West, citizens of the Southland, from wherever you've come from tonight. You have Pointe-a-Pierre here as well? You have an MP for Pointe-a-Pierre? The MP for Pointe-a-Pierre is here? You mean the PNM MP? Okay. And all those of you who are listening, because we are carrying this meeting across the country by way of the various media, a very good night to you all, and I thank you for paying attention to our event. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard a long introduction about me there a while ago. I keep telling this particular chairman to stop doing that. Because if by now you don't know me, you will never know me again. Tonight, I've chosen to come here in Marabella, the epicenter of the action that we have taken in recent days. And I've come here symbolically to indicate to the rest of the country that we are so confident with the rectitude of our action that we are not prepared to shy away from the persons whom the actions are going to affect the most. It is because we understand very clearly the repercussions of the action that we have taken, that we need very little encouragement and very little advice as to our responsibility to the people of the Southland for whom that refinery was their bread and butter and their children's future. Tonight I stand before you not as some qualified geologist, as my introducer said, or even as the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. Tonight, I've come to the people of Marabella, Gasparillo, Pointe-a-Pierre, San Fernando as a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago with a job to do and a duty and an obligation to tell you what is happening. And you know, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard from the Minister of Finance. The Minister of Finance would have told you the financial state of Petrotrin. He gave you some numbers, some very horrendous numbers. Those are the numbers that the accountants meet in Petrotrin, that they have in the company, that they have in the Ministry of Finance, that they have in the banks, that they have at the IMF. But as soon as we decide to confront this issue, all kind of Tom, Dick, Harry, alive and ghosts appear to tell you when they cannot challenge the state of affairs, because they too understand that it's horrendous, they start telling you the Prime Minister lied, the numbers wrong. Where are they getting their numbers from? If the numbers in the Ministry of Finance are wrong, because people in finance can't add, subtract, and divide, where are they getting their numbers from? And if those numbers are wrong, and everything was hunky-dory, how come Petrotrin has to sell its product 2 months hence that it has not made yet to get money to pay today's bills? So even if you have no degree, you have no A-levels, you have no O-levels, you have no nothing, I'm sure you can understand that if you have to spend December money in September to pretend that you're doing well, you know something is wrong. But I want to talk to the mothers, the children, the neighbors, and all those who are attached to the Petrotrin business to make one clear statement to you first and foremost. The government is not closing down Petrotrin. And in case you were just opening your fridge and you didn't hear that when you closed the door, let me repeat it. The government of Trinidad and Tobago is not closing down Petrotrin. As you heard the Minister of Finance say, Petrotrin is an integrated company, means it's involved in a number of things. It's involved in owning assets. It's involved in looking for oil. It's involved in piping oil. It's involved in drilling for oil. It's involved in refining oil and getting refined products. It's involved in marketing its refined products. What Mr. Imbo told the people of Trinidad and Tobago today, particularly the people of this part of our country, is that that aspect of Petrotrin that is involved in refining oil and selling refined product has been bleeding this country dry. And he also told you that this is not news to those who are involved in the business. And there are the people in the country who have the best living provided by the state. The best living in this country provided by the state of Trinidad and Tobago. You, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, are the people who work with the refinery in Pointe-a-Pierre. That's a fact. But when he told you those numbers, you could take the position that, well, don't bother me. But he also told you somebody has to pay it. What has been happening is that we have not been facing up to the reality. Mothers and sisters and brothers and employees, a day of reckoning always comes, and that day is now. And because it is now, let me get back to where I am. I am the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. That's where it comes from. And I have a responsibility, not to me and my cabinet colleagues, because I tell them all the time from the day we entered the first cabinet meeting, I told every cabinet minister, do not fall in love with this job. Do not fall in love with the job. Give it your best. Get interested in your commitment, but don't fall in love. I don't want to hear no minister talking about my ministry. You have no ministry. It's the ministry. You see, as I entered into this assignment as Prime Minister, I was reminded this week by an article in the I think it was The Guardian, a couple of days ago, that quoted at length a speech I made in the Parliament as a member of the Manning government. I was not a minister, contrary to what was said in the papers today, that I was a minister when I made that speech. I was a backbencher in 2009. When the issue of Petrotrin came up, I raised it in the budget debate. And I raised this whole question of the behavior of those who were charged with the responsibility of looking after your money down there. So what I told you in that speech on Sunday night was not news. I made that speech in the Parliament and alerted this country to the Petrotrin calamity, and I did so as a member of a government that I was a part of, having been fired in 2008. But I was still there as a member of the government, and I raised that issue. All those who chose not to listen or to pay attention, because the band was beating a nice music and wail, everybody whining. Nobody listened. Nobody listened. 2009, 6 years later, I find myself as Prime Minister of this country. The problem was 6 years worse. Because every passing month, every passing day, it gets worse. But the smart Alex were hiding the losses, as Minister Ember told you. You make loss this year, you don't declare it. You hide it and talk about future earnings. And you hide it, and then one day, the day when the PNM comes into office, and all things begin to change, all of a sudden, the accountants know that you shouldn't be hiding losses for future profits when all the numbers show that there are no future profits to come. So bam, in 2015 accounts, $5 billion in losses. And you know, I didn't come down here to talk about them, but let me talk about him. I can't. One former minister of government yesterday told the most comprehensive lie to the traumatized people of Trinidad and Tobago yesterday, that the company was making profits all these years, and it's when this government come into office, we interfere with the management, and as a result of our interference, the company started to lose money. That was Rudal Munilal. And the other one was Mrs. Kamala Prasad Bisesa, who loved press conferences now and loved to talk about things she didn't know nothing about. She is now saying, the company, we cancel it. So what happened? Come and serve on that energy subcommittee of the cabinet. When then Motley had retired, in fact, I begged him to stay on UTC board because he is the kind of talent and has the experience and the historical perspective to know what to look for. Let me tell you tonight, it was Wendell Motley who found out and pointed to me what they were doing in Petrotrin, hiding those losses and having it there, carrying it forward. And we realized immediately in an energy subcommittee of the cabinet in the Prime Minister's office, we realized the nature of the beast that we were dealing with. We have a serious problem here because, you know, they could have skylarked in 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, We have no skylarking room. You know why? Because in a matter of months, we are required to treat with $850 million payment in one check. Not a piece now and a piece then, you know. $850 million that company borrowed and spent, due for payment in a few months' time. So even if we had wanted to skylark and to play smart and push it down the road, 2019 is upon us. And if we manage by some miracle to be able to deal with that without pain, a number of months not too far beyond that, another 700 million US is due. So as we're looking at our company, the company is in the hook for almost 1,600 million. Let me put it a different way. 1,650 million US dollars. So multiply it by 6 and see the kind of trouble that all you're in a matter of months. And this has nothing to do with the OWTU, JTOM, or any trade union. This has to do with the people of Trinidad and Tobago, and the government is the leader and the manager of this state of affairs. So we had to face it. We had to face it. So what did we do? We started to look at what it means to deal with that, because the one thing that was clear is that the company was in no position to deal with that. So whether you like it or not, it's a matter for the Minister of Finance. A Minister of Finance who already was up to his eyeball in what he has to deal with. And let me go back to the lady of the last government who see the oath of office different to how I see mine. The oath of office of the Prime Minister and other members of Parliament says, before you could sit down in that chair in the Parliament, you have to swear on whatever Bible or Gita or Quran that you use. Swear that you will act without favor, without fear, without malice, and without ill will. And if you don't make that swearing, you don't sit in that chair in the Parliament. We all did that. I did that. But I discovered the fear that they interpret is the fear of losing office, the fear of losing the seat, the fear of losing office. And that is why, that is the fear that drove them to not deal with this matter when it should have been dealt with, because they are afraid of losing their position. When it was announced that the government is going to close down and the company is on the edge of insolvency, the reason why they send that list to the Ministry of Finance every month to say who they owe is because any one of those contractors who is not paid could go to the court and tell the court, I'm owed money by Petrotrin, I'm not being paid, these are their accounts, I want to declare them insolvent. Liquidator. You saw that happen when the government took CLF to court. You saw that? And all the experts were saying it couldn't happen. CLF was too big and shiny. In 5 minutes, the court ruled. You're earning X, you're spending Y, you have debt of A, B is more than A, you're insolvent. Case closed, liquidator. But that somehow didn't seem to matter to the culture in the organization, because the culture was the Ministry of Finance will do it. I'm hearing politicians who spent billions of dollars in all kind of foolishness jump into the brew now and saying the Prime Minister lied, the Minister lied, the Ministry of Finance doesn't provide any financial support to Petrotrin. But I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I have been in the cabinet many times on a Thursday morning when a note would come, and the note is to authorize the Minister of Finance to authorize a bank to provide Petrotrin with $50 million, and it's all US, $50 million to buy oil to lose it. And then they're telling me the Minister of Finance doesn't provide any support. But they have to tell you that, you know, because none of them could explain to you why this problem existed, and they did not attempt to fix it. They did not attempt to fix it because of fear of the reaction that will come if they attempt to fix it. And that fear caused them to pretend it is not there, to lie to you, to hide the numbers, and to pretend that all is well. And you're hearing that even today. Even today you're hearing that. So all of a sudden, the opposition leader has declared that she's going to file a motion of no confidence in the government or the Prime Minister. I thank you very much, Mrs. Kamla Prasad. Mrs. I was waiting for this for a long time. And she said the Prime Minister would be afraid to set a date. Well, you just file the motion, and I give you the assurance that the date will follow immediately from the government, because it is time the country knows how we got where we are, why we are where we are, and what we're doing about it. Motion of no confidence is the best news I heard for the week. Right? We're going to have that. But the bottom line is this. We as a government, we are committing to treating with the human side of this development. But of course, as I said on Sunday night, there are those who see this as an opportunity to resurrect themselves. There are those who are selling you saddles on dinosaurs to go to horse races with. There are those who believe that this will bring them back into government because the government is going to collapse. But I have absolute confidence in the intelligence of the people of Trinidad and Tobago and your decency. And if I miscalculate on that score, it's not my fault. And I will accept the verdict of you, the jury. Ladies and gentlemen, another thing that we'll do, when we restructure Petrotrin and create a new entity managed with sanity, we are going to offer the employees at Petrotrin shareholding in that new company. They could accept it if they wish. It wouldn't be forced upon anybody. But it will be a company that will have a very good chance of making very good earnings. And if they have a shareholding in there, then that is how you participate and prosper by virtue of working for the entity with some stock ownership being made available. In the United States, in Germany, that is the method that they use to give labor a significant portion and interest in what is produced and what goes to market. We have had examples here that we shouldn't follow. I want to draw your attention. I'm talking here to the wives who will talk to their husbands and the sons who will talk to their fathers and vice versa. When TCL was restructured, all kind of manima went on there. But one of the offerings that was made in that development is that the restructured company, as part of the settlement to the workers, had offered them stock in TCL. At that time, the stock was trading at 90 cents. They were encouraged not to take it. The stock is now, that stock rose to as high as $5 when it was offered, when the offer was made. It is now trading steadily, just above $3 or thereabouts. And I'm sure the people who encourage those workers not to have taken the 90 cents want them to forget that. Another opportunity will come because this government will ensure that as part of the settlement to the workers who will be working in the new Petrotrin, a stock ownership is something that would make the separation not just bearable, but leave something for your friend. But people have different requirements. Some people will demand cash because they may have needs to make payments in 2 or 3 different places and they want cash to make those payments. There are others who want to leave something for their children and their grandchildren, and the stock is the best thing that they will have to leave for their grandchildren. We wouldn't tell them what to do, but we'll make the offer available so that when we begin to operate a second time around in the oil industry, we expect to have workers who are not just dependent on strike and negotiations every 3 years, but who will be owners in the vineyard where they work. You see, I have an issue which most of you don't have. I never know what I'm dealing with or who I'm dealing with. Because all the people who are in front of this decision making loud shouts of disapproval, they're either labor or they are politicians, and or both. Every single one of the voices out front opposing this very sensible decision has a connection to a political party. The OWTU has a political party, MSJ. Watson Duke is a politician in Tobago. He's a minority leader. Carolyn Sipasad Bechan, she's working in a tomb somewhere called the Cops. She appeared like an apparition. Then, of course, the opposition leader is a politician. These are the 4 quarters from which this unreasonable opposition is coming. You never know when they're talking like union or when they're talking like politics. The PNM is the only political organization that is not conflicted and represents all the interests of all the people of Trinidad and Tobago. only entity that is involved in this decision making that is not conflicted is the PNM. So we can make a decision, balancing it, taking into account the need to support those who are going to be hurt in the Southland, but also taking into account those in Laventille and Scarborough and Charlottesville and Sandy Grande who have a stake in this matter. Only the PNM can do that, because we are not conflicted. There are those who are only concerned about how the reduction in numbers at the refinery will affect their own personal well-being. I can't argue with them on that. I can't argue with Labour representing the workers, because that is their job. But as I said to them before, my job as Prime Minister is not your job. They're two different jobs, and we need to see eye to eye, and we need to understand that we are all trying to go to the same place, and that's why I'm in no fight with anybody. I received a letter from the Labour movement late yesterday evening asking for a meeting. I immediately agreed. I'm going to meet with them on Thursday afternoon. Thursday afternoon at 3 o'clock, I'll meet with them. I am curious to hear what they're going to tell me. Because you see, this matter didn't start yesterday. We didn't come here by waking up out of bed because somebody screamed, jump up and pulling on our clothes and run into the traffic. We took a year and a half analyzing this matter. And eventually, in a sane and sober and disciplined way, we came to a decision. A decision which shocked some people. So shocked are they that they gone and cobble up something to come and give us as an alternative. So we took a year and a half to come to this position. But you could take one night and two friends and come with something and say, this is what you're supposed to do. Because basically, what is happening is that this security blanket is difficult to let go of. That kind of approach is wanting to preserve the status quo. Because to change it, to break this egg, to make this omelette is too far, bridge too far for many people. I have seen myself being called a liar twice in this country. We had a president who one day got a VAPS, called the Minister of National Security, called the Commissioner of Police, called the head of the army, and had a meeting for 3 hours. And when I found out about it, and I asked, what is this about? The President of the Republic told the country that I told him to do that. And then the newspaper started to say, well, two of them, one say A and one say B, so we don't know who's speaking the truth. Called a liar by the president. Good. I invited the board to make its final presentation to the cabinet, because the board was in constant communication with the cabinet. No board could be allowed to be left to make a decision like this on its own. No cabinet could turn a blind eye to a decision like this being made in Petrotrin or anywhere for that matter. So they had to keep reporting to the board, to the cabinet. When they had to come back to make that final presentation, and all the numbers were put to us, all the arguments were put to us in the end after months of dealing with the issue, and the cabinet took a decision that we will accept the recommendations to take the action of getting out of refining for reasons given tonight. That was done on a Thursday afternoon. I immediately asked for a meeting with the union, the representative trade union. Not JTOM, not NATUC, not Phyton, with the union. And that was the first time actually that I would have been meeting with the union. Because you see, what's happening in Labour in Trinidad and Tobago is that there are some people who are taking the position that the contract at the company is a different thing, or is the same thing as what they want to deal with at all labor unions. So a group of unions used to come and meet with me. But when it was time to deal with Petrotrin's issue and Petrotrin's numbers and Petrotrin's contract, the government is only going to deal with the OWTU. So bringing all your friends to make noise is not going to change the fact that this is an OWTU issue at Petrotrin. So they came, and contrary to what you're being told, they were told what the cabinet had agreed to and what the cabinet is going to do with respect to treating with this very urgent matter. Because I'll tell you one thing, one of the reasons why the accounting firm suddenly in 2015 accounts decided to expose what they were doing in carrying forward these ridiculous losses is because the debt was coming to be paid, and they knew that in any treatment of that debt, it more than likely would involve refinancing of the debt, because the company couldn't pay it and the government couldn't pay it. So the only thing that is likely to happen is that the government is going to try to refinance the debt. You know what that means? It means take a new loan to pay the old loan. But the bank is not going to just come and give you money to pay the loan you couldn't pay. The bank will come in and examine what is going on in Petrotrin. So that now being on the edge of the horizon, they realize that the game is up. So that is how we own up to what has been happening. So when we take the decision to come out of refining, Thursday evening, Tuesday afternoon, I'm talking to the union. And of course, before that, I thought I had friends in the trade union movement, and I would like to believe we still have friends. So I didn't write the head of the OWTU. I sent a minister from my office to go and stay. The Prime Minister would like to meet with you and so and so and so. And not coming. And then when I said, but you were invited to talk to me when we were about to appoint the board and you choose not to come, comes and tells the country, Prime Minister lie, you can't show me a letter, you never invite me. And then I realized that I should have formally invited. My mistake. I should have written a letter. So sending the minister to ask for the meeting was completely unacceptable. But as fate would go, the minutes of the meeting that we had last Tuesday, the very last line of the minutes say that the meeting went well and it was very productive and very cordial. And I remember as we stood up to leave, the head of the union said to me, Jatam wants to have a meeting with you. I said, write me. So they wrote me and we're having the meeting on Thursday afternoon. And I'm saying to you here, national population, if on Thursday afternoon, the labor movement, well, the OWTU, because there's no labor movement in the contracts of Petrotrin. If the OWTU presents anything that could improve on the current situation, we in the government will be the first to grab it and put it into force. Because you see, we have had their inputs before. The OWTU made presentations to us before in documentary form. Presented it at my office as Prime Minister. As Prime Minister, I'm not going to sit down and take a decision on all those matters. I sent it to the team that was working on Petrotrin. I said, this is what the OWTU has put in as a basket of proposals. Those proposals were factored into the final outcome. It is not for me to say they didn't make sense or they make sense. It's not the Prime Minister doing that. All of it went into the basket of considerations, and at the end of the day, when a decision is made, it is quite wrong for you to say that your inputs were disregarded. Maybe you probably expected that we will do exactly what you've said, but you would have made recommendations. We would have taken them seriously as we've taken everything seriously. Let me ask you all a question here. You would think that this government really could have avoided this situation, and there was an easy way out, a shortcut out, and we would buy this fight just because we like to fight? We are on this, hoisted on this petard, because that is what is on the ground. That is what exists. It is the only sensible decision to take, and we are making the only sensible decision that the circumstances warrant. And when we are through with it, what do we see? We see a company engaged in oil and significant oil production, employing the people with the skills to produce the oil that we want to sell. And here are the experts. We can't sell the oil because the oil ain't good, the oil have sulfur. And saying that only Petrotrin refinery could refine Petrotrin oil, so if we don't have the refinery, the oil is useless. That is the kind of conversation that they're engaging in. Ladies and gentlemen, all over the world, you have oil of different chemical composition. And if the oil is sulfurous, they discount the price, and there's an established price for that kind of oil. If the oil is heavy, there's a way you measure it, and you get a price for it. If the oil is light, sweet crude, you measure it, you get a different price for it. And that's why we get a different price for our offshore oil off the East Coast. All the years Amoco was drilling, we get a different price. The heavy oil on land, you get a different price. Because the land crude has sulfur, you get a different price, but you can sell it. And of course, oh man, the government, you hear the kind of words the opposition leader using? The government incompetent, and the government wicked, and the government arrogant, and the government this, and the government that. And she jumps into Guyana. You know, there's oil in Guyana. Why didn't they go to Guyana and get the oil and bring it here and refine it? Well, let me tell you how we dealt with the Guyana situation. Guyanese oil, which is going to be produced probably by early 2020, I understand. They've been fortunate, they found some significant reserves in Guyana. Immediately, we sought to find out who owns the oil. Guyana oil is owned by the government of Guyana, Exxon, and a third partner. 1/3 of the oil is owned by the Guyanese government. Guyana has no intention at this time to bring any oil to shore for any refinery. The reason being that modern day technology in treating with offshore finds like that, which you can't even see from Guyana. If you're on land in Guyana, you wouldn't even see the flares. They will bring the ships that are built and specifically designed to take the oil from the wellhead onto the ship, do the water separation, and the ship sails away. That's what's happening. But even so, the Guyanese government has a claim on 1/3 of it. So a long time ago, when I became Prime Minister, I spent a day in Guyana with the Guyanese cabinet, seeking to understand what they intend to do with their new prosperity. And I discovered that to further any conversation with Guyana, not just about oil, but on business in general, because this money is going to generate all kinds of business operation in Guyana. We used to have an arrangement with Guyana called a Memorandum of Understanding, which had expired. Expired under the last government, you know, who had no business in giving it life, you know. I reopened the situation, and Minister Moses and Minister Green reopened the situation to establish between Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana a working relationship for our business and mutual benefit. And that MOU took about a year to get the agreement of the Guyanese to sign it. About 2 weeks ago, the Guyanese government finally sent the diplomatic note indicating that they are ready to sign that arrangement as a result of the work that was done for the last year. So while there was drinking and fighting, drinking and fighting all about the place, we were doing our work. And now it has come to a point where we can sign. I am going to Guyana, I think next week, Wednesday, to sign this document, which opens the way for Trinidad and Tobago's companies to participate in that prosperity that is coming to the Guyanese, even if Guyanese oil doesn't come to our refinery. And of course, we were not only stupid in Guyana, we were stupid with Jamaica. Jamaica has 36,000 barrels kept afloat by Venezuelan oil going to Jamaica as part of the Petro-Carib arrangements, where Venezuela has agreed to provide the Caribbean area, including Jamaica, with refined oil products. So Venezuela provides the oil, Jamaica refines it there, and that refining itself is a problem for the government of Jamaica. Even when the oil is coming to you from Venezuela in that way, the refining is a problem. So Jamaica now is not relying on fuel oil for its power generation. 75% of Jamaica's power is now coming from LNG. They're getting out of fuel oil. But the refinery is producing 60% fuel oil on Venezuelan oil. What then is the future of that refinery? And then the refiners come to Jamaican government and say, we want $100 million from you to invest in the refinery. Guess what the Jamaican government has done? They say, no. We are not just going to put $100 million into your refinery. We putting in place a commission to investigate the whole business proposal to see if it is worthwhile to put $100 million in your refinery, even though the government owns a significant chunk of the refinery. And you hear the amount of money, $100 million. The Jamaican government put a commission in place to investigate whether they should put $100 million in that refining business. That is the example that is being held up to us by the opposition leader as how easy it is to have a refinery and to refine for your own business. You heard the numbers that were called tonight about our refining business. Billions and billions and billions and billions. But Jamaica is having a second and a third and a fourth thing about investing $100 million in their refinery. But you see, when we go back to the Petrotrin situation and the new arrangements, one of the most important things that has to happen is a culture of doing business properly has to emerge, otherwise we're going to recreate the same problem all over again. Let me give you an example of how that culture works. Last year, December 2016, the newly minted president of the OWTU, congratulated by all of us, immediately served strike notice. Those situations we talk about tonight existed then. They existed then, but we were faced with strike notice. Petrotrin was going to go on strike for a pay increase. And we sought to hold the line then and say, listen, reason, preserving the jobs, the well-paying jobs. The money is not there. The debt is growing. The company can't make it expenses. The Minister of Finance is required. No. Strike. And the strike was due to start one Monday morning in January. And the management is negotiating with the union. The same management that told the Minister of Finance before that they cannot afford to pay any increases for the reasons you saw tonight. The management said to the Minister of Finance, we in this company cannot afford to pay any increase. That got the union annoyed and they called a strike. Within just the 24 hours with the strike being due, the management then turned around and says to the government, okay, agree to the increase and we will find a way to pay it. You understand that? The same management that told the Minister of Finance that there's no way they could pay the increase or any increase under the pressure of the strike threat. And in the negotiating table, the contributions to the negotiation by the management was that just agree to it, and we will find a way to pay. That strike was settled when the government agreed to authorize Petrotrin to offer the company 1% first, then the following year another percent, and then the final year 3%. So that was 5% in that order. And on that basis, the strike was going to end. You know what Petrotrin did? They settled the strike at 320. So when the cabinet very carefully said, get 1% in 1 year, so the payroll goes up a little bit by 1%, and then the next year it will go up a little bit by 1%, and then in the third year you get a 3%. They said no, settle it for 3% first year, so it goes up 3%, and then you get 1% on that 3% and another 1% on that 3%. Completely opposite to what the cabinet wanted to do. So they got 5% for 2 years as against 5% over 3 years. You know how much money that is? But I was in management at work. 113 converted to 32. And of course, the zero for the third year went to the industrial court. And the industrial court, looking at the company's circumstance, I understand granted a 1%? 1%. And of course, negotiations are due. And of course, I think everybody expects that negotiations mean pay increase. They are giving us all kinds of advice now. Why didn't you reduce the production to the local needs only? It don't go so. It's not a piece of wood that is 10 feet long and you only want 6 feet, you cut off 6 feet. No, don't go like that. This is a refinery that is constructed in a particular way. To convert it into a refinery to produce the amount of 25,000 barrels a day that we're using, you may find yourself spending even more than what they're asking for now. They want $7 billion now to be invested in the refinery, to make it operational going forward, to lose $2 billion a year. You understand that? Put $7 billion in now to keep it going. And while it is going, after that $7 billion is spent over a period of time, you will lose $2 billion a year. That's what they're asking us to do. And of course, over the period of time to bring the refinery where it should be for safety and efficiency, they say to us, it would require $25 billion. Let me explain that to you. We just got back from Clico, a basket of assets. Some of the best assets in the country. Bank shares, Bitco shares, or whatever. We went out for the NIF. And people with money in this country, big people, medium people, large people, big companies, small companies, put their money in. We raised $4 billion. $4 billion. That chunk of the national effort, those assets, $4 billion. Somewhere in the country, somebody's saying to you, man, that is chick feed. Let us agree to a $25 billion investment in an industry to lose money. $25 billion. Look what 4 billion did. Look what is 4 billion. But 25 billion is, let's just go ahead merrily and keep it going like that. Oh, and don't worry, we already eat up 11 billion. And of course, when they were discovered to be playing the games with the losses, they were forced to write off 4 billion. Write off means just take it off the books as if it never was there. $4,000 million. Those are the strands of the spider web of the industry. That is what we've been called upon to do. And the only difference, the only difference between today and the days before is that in Trinidad and Tobago today, there's a government that is prepared to do what has to be done to give the people of Trinidad and Tobago a chance for the future. That's the only difference. That is the only difference. You see, we could have done what others have done, which is play the popularity game. Use the populist mechanisms. I'm going to give you this, I'm going to give you that, I'm going to give you this, I will do that. But at the end of the day, we'll be far worse off. We in the PNM, we have just turned the sod for a new headquarters in Balize House last Thursday evening. Are we going to build a new headquarters? And you know why we're doing that now? Because we have our feet firmly rooted in the present and the future of Trinidad and Tobago. So our actions are not about short-term popularity. Our actions are about long-term survivability for all the people of Trinidad and Tobago. There will be good days and there'll be bad days. There'll be good times and there'll be bad times. For those of you here down Petrotrin now, I have no doubt that you are seeing this period as a period of bad times. But as I told you on Sunday night, rather than look at the way out into the light, there are people in this country who see this as an opportunity to launch their canoes into the ocean to take them back into government, to launch their political career that was moribund before. They take that opportunity to insult, to demonize, to lie, to misrepresent, to make fake news, and to confuse the whole issue. There were those who were hoping that they'd end up in dreamland, that the country would become ungovernable. Did you hear Mrs. Kamala Prasad be Saturday night? I am not telling anybody to riot. Remember the famous Baka story? Don't loot. Remember, don't loot? And what happened after Baka said, don't loot? Well, tonight, Mrs. Kamala Prasad said, I am not telling anybody to riot, you know. But all of a sudden, birds of a feather start to flock together. She chummy with Roger and Earl MacLeod, and who is, you know all them, right? But I'm sure they're watching her with cocky eye, because, you know, Master know you. You see, when these things begin to happen, you have to understand what you are dealing with. As information comes to you, especially at this time, you have to look at who is talking. The very same people who got us where we are today, the very same people who had a hand in putting us where we are today, are out front trying to hold themselves out to you as savior in your moment of grief and hurt. They're the same people. The last government had the opportunity to treat with this with less pain. When NGC had $16 billion in a bank account, we could have dealt with this Petrotrin issue with less pain. But no, you leave it, you spend it on other things. You spent it in other places. You enriched a few and leave the many to face today. And of course, you know, if we do a roll call of who is now opposing this decision and predicting political doom and gloom, all of them have questions to answer as to why they did nothing about this situation, why they worsened this situation and left it here, and now that we are dealing with it, all of a sudden they are the advisors. I have heard it said that we have left out the labor movement from this decision making. I offered a place on the board to the OWTU and they turned it down, and here's the reason why they turned it down. That there's a principle involved, and the principle is this, that the government must agree that once you appoint the board, the government must have no say in what the board does. And of course, the government must go to Parliament and legislate that. So if the government tries to intervene, you'll be breaking the law. And to appoint the board, we must go to Woodford Square and have a big to-do in Woodford Square and select the board in some process, not by the minister or the cabinet appointing a board, some unidentified process other than that. And that process will appoint the board, and once you appoint the board must now be free the way they put it, the board must now be free to act without the interference of the government. So I had to ask them, who in their right mind in any government will know that the Constitution says that a minister of government is responsible for all items under his or her portfolio and can give general or specific instructions to that entity. That's the law. That's the Constitution. It says a minister is responsible and can give general instructions or guidelines or specific instructions or guidelines. They are telling me that the reason why they wouldn't go on Petrochin board is because that law exists and they want a different law where you appoint a board and the board go and do whatever it wants and the government must not be able to tell the board anything. And I had to say to him, but you yourself don't believe in that. Because every Monday morning you want to meet the Prime Minister. Everything that happened in the company, you want to talk to the Prime Minister. Not even the Minister, nor the Prime Minister. But the reason why they didn't want to go on the board is because they did not want to be part of the difficult and hard decision that had to be made. That was the reason why. In other countries, boards have worked with labor to make changes, far-reaching changes. And at the end of the day, they all came out better. I mean, I am not here knocking labor, you know. I have no fight with labor. The people who are members of the unions, they have to see what is being offered to them. They have to see what the leadership is doing. You could imagine that the law says in this country that essential services are not open to industrial action, otherwise they'll be breaking the law. But I see Watson Duke on television, big and bad. You have a court case today, it was bad last night, right? Telling civil aviation workers to abandon their posts. Well, tonight I want to say to the civil aviation workers, do not take any advice from Watson Duke and shut down our airspace. Trinidad and Tobago is not only responsible for the airspace over our territory, we are responsible for the airspace all the way up the Eastern Caribbean. People's lives are at risk. Do not take advice from Watson Duke. Watson Duke is a politician who engages the government and the PNM as a politician, and that is political advice, and it's dangerous to the region, to the country, and to you as a worker. Because I want no fight with anybody. My government is not engaging in fight with anybody, but we are going to enforce the law. If civil aviation workers take advice, if civil aviation workers take that irresponsible advice and shut down our airspace, I don't have to instruct the Attorney General to sue every one of them personally. And we will go where the law takes us, wherever there is irresponsible arrangements like that, and encouragement by leaders in communities or in the union to encourage workers to break the law and put lives at risk. We are going to go to the places where the law affects and complain about those actions. I'm appealing to our fellow citizens. If you have a job, if you've maintained a job in the public sector in this country, for heaven's sake, appreciate it was at the expense of those who had no jobs for the past. And the country The country has gone the extra mile to keep you in that job. And if the answer to that and the reward for that is to put their lives at risk, then off to the court we go and you answer in the court. There are governments who had less pressure on this government and took action to reduce its expenditure on the public service. We have not done that. And why we're not asking anybody to say thanks, we're just saying to you, don't endanger the country. I want to appeal to our citizens that in moments like these, the line of least resistance is the one that gets you to the place you don't want to go. It is not going to be easy, but I want to give the assurance to the people in this area in particular who will be directly affected that the same resolve that this government makes to make this decision, we resolve to be there with you and for you to ensure that the burden is eased and the pain is eased so you can get over this period of transition. The government of Trinidad and Tobago gives you that assurance. And it's not just the government, it is the people of Trinidad and Tobago who give you that assurance, because I'm sure tonight there are people in Charlottesville, there are people in Carenage, there are people in Cunupia, there are people in Sandy Grande, there are people down on Monos Island who are agreeing with me that these people who are directly affected, they ought to get an extra hand from the government to make it, because we all want to make it, and I know we could make it. So the threats and the insults are not going to change it. The only thing that's going to change it is a better idea. And if they come up with a better idea, we are open to a better idea. So tonight, I want to say to all the people of Trinidad and Tobago, this is a problem that should have and could have been fixed a long time ago. But persons who were in fear of losing their parliamentary position fail to take the decision. I am prepared to sacrifice my parliamentary and my political future doing what is right for the children of Trinidad and Tobago. And as for those who call in for elections, elections will come. And you, the caller, you only have one vote. Everybody else has a vote in this country. And it's at that time that you will determine whether you've elected a government that has the strength of character and the moral fortitude to do what has to be done to give Trinidad and Tobago a better chance. We're not coming out of oil. We're not coming out of oil. We are expanding our effort in oil. We're coming out of refining. And that brings me to the last point. How many of you ever had a car? New car. And then one day you decide, this is an old car. You make it noisy, breaking down. You're having trouble. I am going to get rid of this car. What do you do with it? So most people sell it, because the same way you think it's an old car, somebody else buying a car for the first time is a new car. Or somebody might want to work a PH with it and they need it. Or some persons have been known to just leave it right there to rot in the road. These are all the options. But the first thing we had to do was to take the refinery out of the operation and identify it as a separate entity. Once we do that now, I know of no person in this country who is interested in that refinery. And if one appears, I would look at them very carefully, because they might not be having all the marbles in the game. Because that refinery is not an easy thing to take on as an asset that you are going to own. I know of no person and nobody in my government or nobody who we have spoken to on this issue has indicated to us of any interest in that refinery. Now that we are taking it out of line, we are now going to have to look to see what are the options available. And we will treat with any option that gives us, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, a chance to have the asset work for us. And that is it. That is it. So all this stupid talk about the government have their friends to give it to, and the race talk about 1%. Every time you hear that 1% story, it runs against our national anthem where every creed and race is supposed to find an equal place. It's race talk. We're not involved in that. We are going to have a refinery there, and if there's anybody anywhere in the world who knows we have a refinery and want to come and talk to the government of Trinidad and Tobago, the door is open. The door is open. But it will not be used to continue to drain the 2 cents we have out by the billions. And it may make a few people happy, but the rest of the country will be facing bankruptcy. And let me tell you what bankruptcy means. If we get downgraded again, as we certainly will, it means that all the debt that the government is going to face going forward, because we are running deficit budgets, we have to pay more in interest charges. In some instances, certain persons would lend us money because our credit rating is too low. We are a bad risk. And I'll tell you something too, you know. We would not be the first country that end up like that, you know. But I gave you an assurance when I took this job as Prime Minister. I gave you an assurance that we will not be going to the IMF to rectify any problem in this country. We will take our own medicine. And today, closure of Petrotrin is the medicine that we have to take, and we'll take it of our own volition and not be ordered by the IMF. Because by the time we reach the IMF, I hear unions representing Tiantec and Wasa and others joining this and joining that. If you want trouble in this country with respect to the stability of job security in those areas, let this country follow bad advice, build up billions in debt, can't pay the debt, end up by the IMF, and then have to resort to the lender of last resort. That is when you will know where barley grew. And all those who would have led this country in that direction, they will just go off and drive their BMW and say, bye-bye, birdie. And you would say, what was the PNM doing to allow this to happen? We are doing what has to be done. We are in control of what we are doing, and we are doing it for the wider national population and not for any simple sectorial interests. A union has its employees to look after, to get the best deal for. But when the national interest calls for a wider vista and different decisions, a conflict develops between what they may want and what is good for the rest of the country. And that's where we are at the moment. So I ask you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, to stand with the sensible decisions that we have made. Expect us to do what has to be done, and believe in the vision that we have crafted for a new Petrotrin in a vigorous oil industry, and a situation where we'll be making billions as against losing billions. All of this is about converting a money-losing company into a company that is profitable. That is what this is all about. And once that company is operating profitably, it will contribute to the well-being of all of us wherever we are in Trinidad and Tobago. The government has no choice. I thank you for your support. I thank you. I thank you for your understanding. I thank you for looking ahead, not just for us, those of us to whom this country has already been good, but look at what lies down the road for the children we sent out to school yesterday. Thank you and good night.
We are